Hello.
Live TikTok.
We are live on TikTok Q&A with the Pharmacist. Are we live on other platforms too now?
We are. We are
Awesome.
rolling across the Facebooks and the TikToks and the YouTubes and the X.
Yes.
So
This is a live Q&A with Pharmacist. I am Sean Needham, and this is Sarah, and we are going to answer all your questions. And so please send in questions. That's what we're here for. Any healthcare related questions. We're going to start off with one we got from somewhere. I don't know where. We're going to start off with PMS and PMDD. PMS is premenstrual syndrome, and PMDD is, what is it? Premenstrual
disorder.
Kind of the same thing.
So similar.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here's one of the things I think about as a pharmacist that specializes in hormones. PMS or PMDD, one of the things that is common to them is they follow cycles. So they follow a woman's cycle. Anytime there's something that follows a woman's cycle, whether it becomes an irregular cycle, whether it's headaches, whether it's PMS, anytime that it's cyclical, I think about progesterone. And it doesn't matter what age. Typically PMS, it's going to be younger. But not always, but before perimenopause and postmenopause. So I think about progesterone, and you need progesterone. So go, Sarah. Tell
My
us about
turn.
it.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are affected by it, and so like the week leading up to a woman's period, things like that is the most common time for this, right? And so the change in attitude, anxiety, depression, you can even think of just short fused. There's a lot of reasons why, right? Is it hormonal? Most likely. But does it also have to do with gut health? Right? Of course, because your gut health affects your hormones, right? So everything is connected. And so the most common form of fixing that, in air quotes, is with like antidepressants, right? And anxiolytics. And it's so sad because that is not the root cause of the problem. And then we end up with women that have they have no feelings, right? We take away their feelings, we take away that, and that's a sad state. So,
and I would argue, Sarah, and I think you'll agree once I say this, my guess is the most common treatment for PMS or anything cyclical related to a woman's period is birth control pills.
Bingo.
Yeah. Probably before antidepressants.
Before antidepressants, yes.
Yeah.
And my bad but I think just because I've been listening to a lot of it and how people are getting put on the antidepressants. But yeah, birth control, right? Your cycle isn't regular. Oh, we'll put you on birth control. Oh, you bleed too much. Oh, we'll put you on birth control. When really those are all keys of our body telling us something.
Exactly. Healthy women should cycle regularly. And that means cycle every 28 days in a normal cycle, normal periods. And birth control pills do not fix the problem. No. Birth control pills mask the symptoms. They literally put a woman into chemical induced menopause. It basically takes your hormones and stops you from producing endogenous hormones. That's why you can't get pregnant. If you're healthy and have good hormones, you can get pregnant. Birth control pills suppress that. And sure, they'll help some of the symptoms of PMS possibly, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. You're treating a symptom instead of fixing the problem. Like Sarah says, look at gut health. Look at the three big things that we talk about on our podcast all the time. Sleep, diet, and exercise. And we can just modify that. Let's call it sleep or rest. Let's call diet nutrition. And let's call exercise movement. It's those three basic principles. Now, if you're not sleeping because you have a hormone imbalance, i.e. progesterone, progesterone can help you sleep. Progesterone is a neurohormone. It is metabolized in the brain into allopregnanolone, and it causes modulation of GABA, which is an inhibitory hormone, which helps you sleep. So progesterone can help you sleep, and obviously getting you to sleep is very, very important for your overall health. Nothing is going to get better if you're not sleeping well.
Right. And that just helps reset your circadian rhythms. Once our rhythms are in balance, everything else tends to follow suit. Right. And so the rest obviously helps our hormones. It helps our digestion. Right. And if our digestion is good, it helps our liver function. And if our liver is working good, I mean, that's the gatekeeper to all of our health. It really is our liver. And so honoring those principles is very important for sure. And yeah.
And let's go back to birth control.
Yes, I was just
since
going
we
to go there.
started this, since we already started on this subject, I think birth control pills, and I will say this, any hormonal birth control, we have to qualify this now because there's even doctors out there that say, well, the Mirena IUD, it's hormonal birth control, but it doesn't go systemic, so it just stays, where you place it in the on the cervix. But that is absolutely false, because if any drug changes your period,
right,
then it is going systemic. It is telling your brain that you need less hormones.
Right.
So whether if it's hormones, whether it's an implanted hormone in your arm, whether it's Mirena IUD, whether it's birth control pills, if it is affecting your cycles, then it is hormonal birth control, and it has the same side effects that hormonal birth control does. What are those side effects? First of all, Sarah mentioned depression with PMS. So what do? We give women antidepressants to treat PMS sometimes, and we also give them birth control. What does birth control pill cause? They cause depression. They cause anxiety. They cause
cardiovascular issues.
Yeah, long-term cardiovascular issues. Shorter term, they can cause infertility. Yeah. There's a lot of women that can't get pregnant after they stop birth control pills. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention Depo-Provera is also birth control, an injectable birth control.
Yeah. And also, like, people think, oh, well, I'm regular because I'm on birth control, right? I mean, like, I took birth control for decades, and well, I'm regular. Things can be predicted. Yes, it makes your life easier, but there's nothing about it that was really that good, that was good for us. And the more we learn, right? I mean, what I've learned in the last year about the harm that I caused my own body is just blown my mind, and how the education that I'm getting and sharing now on hormones and all of those things, that it's huge. It's so important that we teach people that birth control pills are not a good and safe option for females. And it is frightening, but yeah, like we don't, our cycle isn't normal because we're on birth control. All that is a withdrawal bleed, right? It is a chemical withdrawal that causes your uterus to bleed, right? Like it is not an actual cycle. And I think when I heard that term, that was one of the turning points that I was like, oh, wow, now that makes sense. And
many women will say, well, I've been on birth control pills for 3 to 5 years or whatever, and I haven't had any problems with it. Well, you might not know those problems, but you start talking and asking questions, they might have problems: decreased libido, vaginal dryness, depression, anxiety, problems sleeping. So they might, if you start asking those questions.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that you don't understand is that you don't have any problems until you don't know what you don't know. You don't have any problems until you do.
Right.
And you go off the birth control pills and you become infertile, can't get pregnant, or you're 50 years old and you have weak bones and osteoporosis because you didn't allow your body's own hormones to build strong bones, and cardiovascular problems like Sarah mentioned. But you don't notice that until you're 50. Right. I can probably say safely that, it is the biggest class of drugs that has ever been sold in the United States. And think about this, Sarah, you as a pharmacist, you can help me with this one. Now, since there's so many different brands of birth control, we can't, it's really hard to get the exact numbers to add them all up. But if you look at all the different brands of birth control, generic, non-generic, over the last 60 years, because they came out in the 1960s, it has by far been, think about it. There are young girls being put on birth control when they're 11. That's the record I've heard. 11 years old. Yeah. So think about this. And there are women in their 50s on birth control pills.
Well, and they're not even getting necessarily that, and people are like, oh, well, what are you putting an 11-year-old on birth control for? Well, it's not necessarily for birth control, but it's for, maybe she's an 11-year-old that is experiencing a lot of headaches and a lot of misery, or, a lot of heavy bleeding. Well, that's also her body saying, hey, something is not right. Well, and if we think about the diet that we consume, of course, something is not right, and so I'm just so grateful that I'm learning all of this, better late than never, and being able to share that in the fact of we do need to look at the other things, right? Like, let's look at what these kids are consuming from age 0 to 11. And, and that's where it needs to start as well, and I feel like that's a pretty large soapbox that we could get onto for quite some time.
Well,
but it's true.
But it's true.
So true.
I mean, it is so
true.
important. I mean, like I said earlier, healthy women have healthy cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not having healthy cycles, why are they not?
Yeah.
One of the things that, because if you're having a healthy cycle, that means that you can probably get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And that also, only healthy people can get pregnant. If you can't get pregnant, then because your body's saying, hey, wait a minute, you're not eating the right food, you're metabolically unhealthy, you can't support a baby. That's literally what your body is saying.
Right.
So, healthy women cycle regularly and can get pregnant. And
right.
Also, healthy pregnancies increase your health long term. My wife loves to tell the story of her grandmother that had 15 children. She lived into her 90s, very, very healthy woman, lived up until the day she died, thrived up until the day she died. And part of it was her body was full of hormones most of her life. She had 15 kids.
Right. She had a lot of doses of really, really high estrogen, progesterone,
yes. And testosterone, because all three of those sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, increase during pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And it just shows you, how powerful those hormones are. And there's been many of studies to show that the younger women, like women that start having kids in their 20s, live healthier, longer lives. And I think that's partly due to hormones, but it also says something about their body. If you can get pregnant, then that also means you're healthy.
Right.
And we have an epidemic now of young women that can't get pregnant. They have PCOS.
Yep.
And PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is a metabolic disease.
Right.
It is largely caused by lifestyle and diet. Most women that have PCOS are overweight, but definitely almost all of them are metabolically unhealthy, because if they were metabolically healthy, then they would be having regular cycles and they can get pregnant.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, your cycles are basically your report card on how you're,
Great analogy.
If you are not having regular cycles, that means you're failing on your report card of your own body and your hormonal health. And so, and that's what I like about what we do here at Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy, but also what I do as an integrative health practitioner, where we look at the imbalances, right? We're looking at more imbalances and can actually acquire that data now. And it's not being within normal limits on blood work per se, but it's looking at our gut health, looking at our minerals, any heavy metal toxicities, so many different things. But gut health and, balancing hormones are so critical. And that's where we're getting to see the joy of all these people, that once we get things balanced, all of a sudden, these women are getting pregnant, and they're having these families that they've always dreamed of. And that has been super exciting to see that change come about, because I think, just like you said, there's so many people that are having difficulties out there getting pregnant, these younger ladies. I know a lot of friends of mine have done like the in vitro and IVF, and I don't know anything really about it, but all I know is that there is an imbalance in the body that needs to be addressed. And, and sadly, we're not, the system, I'm going to use air quotes on that one as well. The system itself is not looking into those and addressing that, because there is a lot of money to be made on IVF, right? And a lot of happiness to be found with the children that come from it. But
so it looks like we have a comment. Do you know Tracy Hammond?
Yeah.
There's a horse on Tracy Hammond's profile, so I'm assuming Sarah knows her. Thank you for watching, Tracy, and say hi to Tracy, Sarah.
Yes, hi Trace. Thank you for joining. Always wanting to spread all good information, and so.
So speaking of infertility,
yes.
I interrupted you. I'm sorry, Sarah. Go.
Sean loves doing this.
I'm passionate
He's
about
good at it, and I'm so excited, to call him the guest speaker today on his own show. But this is great.
This is not my own show. This is the Pharmacist show, and Sarah's one of our pharmacists. So, speaking of infertility, Jan and I, my wife Janet, who is also a pharmacist. If you're watching on any platform besides TikTok, you can see my wife right there. We were at a hormone presentation in Palm Springs.
I was going to ask about this. Yes, tell us more about this weekend.
One of our we wrote a list of our biggest takeaways. One of the biggest takeaways, now that we're talking about infertility, was infertility. And one of my biggest takeaways from that, something maybe I'd heard it before, but I don't remember hearing this before. But typically in our healthcare system, when we think about infertility, we think about the woman. But over 30% of the time, it's the man. And that could be for many reasons. Partly they're not making enough sperm. Partly the sperm are not viable. Their morphology or their shape is not right. And that also is a metabolic health issue.
Right.
Also, another thing with male infertility is erectile dysfunction. Now, it's sad to think that we would have young men. I mean, we're talking about men in their 20s, right? That should be as healthy as they're ever going to be, possibly, that have erectile dysfunction. And erectile dysfunction it's an indicator of poor metabolic health, poor vascular health.
Right.
And, so the way it works is that the vessels in the penis are smaller than the vessels in the heart. So you will have erectile dysfunction before you'll have like chest pain because the vessels are smaller. So it's a sign that you have poor vascular health. Now, and as a 20-year-old, it's amazing that we're even have to talk about this. Yeah. But the takeaway was check the men first. And here's why.
Makes sense.
Because first of all, it's much easier to check a man than it is a woman. I mean, having a sperm count or a sperm sample is pretty easy. Whereas with a woman, you've got to be it's more invasive. Now, I will say this, part of the healthcare system, it's a lot more expensive to check the woman. Yep. So a lot of times they'll just check the woman right away because that's where they make more money. So it's important go ahead, Sarah.
Well, and then do you think, just for conversation wise, that if the male is having problems, well, turns out Big Pharma created, this magical pill that alleviates that symptom. And so they totally bypass the metabolic dysfunction of the male and give them a pill for the symptom and oh, wait a minute, now all of a sudden they're dead because of heart attacks.
Exactly.
Right? So
exactly. I mean,
it's frightening. And
right.
So we need to have that awareness, and couples need to know these things.
And here's one of the things about that is, so Sarah was mentioning your cycles as a woman is your report card. I've never heard that analogy. I love it. I'm going to steal that.
I stole it from somebody too. I heard it the other day. I'm like, the report card. You makes so much sense.
You should have taken credit for it.
I know, but I just can't.
But report card for males, young males especially, well, and older males is erections. Do you have daily erections? Especially, do you wake up in the morning with an erection? That is a sign of good health. If you're not, and believe me, if you're in your teenage years and you're in your 20s and you are not waking up with morning erections, that's a sign of poor health for a young man. And as we age, that can get worse, but doesn't have to. Eat right, move right, sleep right, and you can keep those things going. But that's a great indicator of health when it comes to being a male. And it just this is a reminder that healthy people reproduce. That's a fact. We were created to reproduce. That's a fact. Whether people want to believe it or not, that is a fact. That's how we propagate our species. And that's okay. So if you're healthy, you can reproduce, and obviously it takes a male and a female. So when it comes to infertility, note, check the male first.
Right, right.
What else, Sarah?
Yeah, those were kind of the two big ones that I had leading into here. The
Tracy, you've got to have a question for us.
right. She usually has a few of them. How about, what are your thoughts on anxiety? And I know that you've talked a lot about exercise being the biggest thing, but when we talk about people that move a lot, constantly busy all day long, grinding through every single day, but yet they're still having, say, thyroid issues, they're still having gastrointestinal issues. What would be your favorite recommendations for people that are, they're high performers in daily life, and if they're dealing with all of those issues, what are some of your favorite
Well, first
key
of all,
things to work on?
yeah. Well, first of all, what you said, there were two little red flags when you said busy and grinding through daily life. Okay, so I don't know if you meant for it to sound like this, but when I hear busy and I hear grinding through daily life, I don't hear relaxed. I hear a person is anxious. I think of a person that is spinning their wheels. Um, to me, it's always a red flag when somebody says, "Well, I'm just too busy." Mm, too busy means you're not organized enough. That's my opinion. And and bragging about being busy all the time and not resting, that's nothing to brag about, unless you want to brag about dying early.
Right.
And then grinding through the day. Okay, so I mean, if you're grinding through the day, that sounds miserable to me. You know, I like to I like to think about what our ancestors did, and I like to go back to ancestral, whether it be eating or moving or our rest. What did our ancestors do? They got up with the sun. They went to bed with the sun. Now, I got to tell you, when you live in northern latitudes like we do in Washington,
Makes for a short day.
I don't get in the winter, and it makes for a long day in the summer. So I got to tell you, in the summer, I don't get up at 3:30 in the morning when the sun comes up, and
I do love that 5 a.m. wake up with the sun.
and I don't go to bed in the winter at 4 o'clock in the morning or 3:30 whenever our sun goes down. But what did they do? Did they consider themselves busy all day long? Did they consider themselves grinding through the day? No, they just moved all day long. And
with purpose,
yeah,
and intent,
with purpose.
Right?
Yeah,
we
they
need
were
to
either
eat, we need to
preparing
hunt,
food,
we need
hunting,
to make something,
gathering food. So I think we need to emulate that as much as possible. And people that brag about being busy or grinding through the day, I'm using your words. I don't think it's healthy, personally. I think we, like Sarah says, we need to do things with purpose. And there was one of my friends of mine, and I think his uncle told me this story. Don't confuse activity with productivity or something like that.
Right. Yes.
We can be busy and not get anything done. It's like, so
I'm good at that.
I mean, we all can be. It's pretty easy to do that. So
setting priorities is huge, right?
And
setting your day with intention.
And limiting distractions.
Right. Yes. But we thank these distractions of the phone and the social medias for things like what we're doing right now, right? So there's the irony of that, but the ability for us to share this information because of these tools is so fantastic. But yeah, because I have a lot of clients that, oh, I'm fine. But when you really dig down, they really have anxiety. They don't want to drive, to go and do something fun because they're worried about something, or their gastrointestinal issues that they have don't allow them the freedom to go out to a restaurant and eat and then go do something different, right? And those are all things that need to be addressed, starting with sleep, diet, and movement, right? And so, but allowing yourselves that sleep part. I'm just like on repeat all the time with
Yeah,
with
I mean,
sleep because
it's pretty basic.
so important.
There's no magic out there.
No.
And if anybody tries to sell you a magic pill, a magic supplement, whether they're a pharmacist or a non-pharmacist, there's no magic out there.
Yeah.
Sarah said it's sleep, diet, and exercise. And in that order, we will die without sleep before we'll die without exercise. I'm sorry, let me go back. We will die without sleep before we'll die without food. Okay, right. Those are facts. You will get delirious and psychosis within about 3 or 4 days of losing sleep. Okay, but most of us, because we store calories very well as humans in times of fasting, when we used to not have food, now we have an unlimited food source. Yeah. We store food very well, so most of us could go 30 days without eating. And I'm not going to say that's going to be healthy, although I think fasting is healthy. But 30 days, probably not. Depends on who you are, though.
Time and a place and a situation. Yeah.
And when it comes to exercise, you do not have to exercise to stay alive. No. Think about it. You could be sedentary. I'm not saying you're going to be healthy, but you don't have to exercise to stay alive. You have to eat to stay alive. You got to sleep to stay alive. So exercise is the least important. And people forget that. When they look at somebody that is healthy, they say, oh, that woman, she must exercise 20 hours a week. Probably not. She watches what she eats. She sleeps well. And she probably exercises well under 5 hours a week. Right. Most people don't need more than 5 hours exercise a week. Now, depends on what you call exercise.
And what your goal is.
And that's, right. Because,
what you're working towards.
Movement could be called exercise too. And exercise can be a dirty word for some people. But if you live, if you're trying to get in steps per day, then, that's movement. That's part of exercise. Now, I think
that's your baseline. Like
that's your baseline.
That's
right.
Minimum.
That's baseline.
We say, you need to get 10,000 steps. And well, that's a nice thing to have. And yeah, you always strive for that. But like we've talked before, start where you're at. If you only do 500 steps in a day, go to 1,000. If you're at 1,000 steps, go to 2,000. Work on starting where you're at, meeting yourself where you're at, and carrying on from there. But walking movement is bare minimum right now. When we start bringing in more strength, some more purposeful exercise regimes, then, we need to create that priority and whatever. And then I talked, what was it, Kathy the other day said, nothing good happens after 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
In the weight training, right? So do your movements, spend your 45 minutes. Don't exhaust your body because that's a whole nother stress. And then, and then honor it with rest and nutrition. So.
That's right. And remember, you don't get stronger when you work out. You actually get weaker when you work out.
Right, because you're breaking things down.
Yeah, you get stronger when you sleep and food. You can't get strong with that if you don't eat food. Yeah. I mean, it's impossible. I mean, food is energy, and that's how we build muscle. So yes, Sarah's right. Resistance training. Add some resistance training in. Very, very important. Doesn't have to be complicated. Don't make it complicated. Like Sarah says, start where you're at. Do push-ups on your knees to start with. Do body weight squats if you're not doing anything. You don't have to have a weight room. None of that stuff. Definitely start where you're at, and don't make it complicated, and eliminate barriers. And I think one of the barriers is going to a gym.
Huge.
My wife and I live, I know this sounds silly to some of you guys. It might be in big cities, but we live about 15 minutes outside of town. So to go to the gym, it would be a half hour of driving at least, really, probably because the gyms are on the other side of town, most of them. It'd probably be closer to 40 minutes.
Yeah, I spend an hour driving to go in and go out to the gym.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that has been my barrier for all these years, which is why my gym anxiety is so real right now. But I am making that movement and getting there. And even if, the other day I went and tried some different machines that I hadn't been on yet. Okay, that's right. But shrinking the start.
Yeah.
Shrinking the start is huge, right? Making sure everything is ready. It's in the pickup. It's ready to go.
Exactly. Eliminate barriers. Yeah. Put your clothes out. Get your gym clothes ready. Anything you need to go to the gym. So you can't say, oh, well, gosh, I don't have my stuff laid out. I'm just going to lay around. Yeah. And I think, too, to one of the eliminating a barrier for working out, do it in the morning. Mm-hmm. And believe me, I am not a morning person. I don't like mornings. I love sleeping in. My wife doesn't either. But we know that we have a lot better luck getting workouts done in the morning than after you come home from work and it's 6 o'clock at night. Nah, I'm not doing it tonight. I'll do
Well,
it tomorrow.
Right. And that's where I've got my backpack in my pickup where I'm going to go right from here to the
exactly.
gym before
Right.
I go to
Right.
home. So it's just creating that priority, which is not something I've loved to do before because I like the outside movement. I like the, the body weight stuff, but it's not enough sometimes, that's where I'm at right now. It's not enough. I need to up the ante.
And speaking of home gym, you don't need to have anything fancy, Jen. I do have a gym at home because it makes it convenient for our workouts. But you know what? You can do a lot with a couple pair of dumbbells. I did like a light pair, like a 10-pound pair, and then maybe a 35-pound pair. I'm a big fan of kettlebells. There's a lot you can do with a kettlebell. You can do more with a kettlebell than a dumbbell. Get a couple kettlebells, and I mean a 10-pound kettlebell and a 30-pound kettlebell. And you don't need a lot of weight. I don't work out. I hardly ever use more than a 35-pound dumbbell. You don't need a lot of weight to get good results.
I need to learn kettlebells.
Oh,
they're a little scary and intimidating,
yeah.
Especially when you see the guys on Instagram and TikTok doing it, and they're like swinging this thing around and doing all the stuff, and I'm like, oh.
Kettlebell. If there's one exercise you can do in the gym, I would say it's a kettlebell swing. Now you need to practice it to get good form, first of all.
Right.
But it's going to work.
I'll need a supervisor.
It's going to work all your upper body and lower body, pretty much all the muscles you need. They're push pulls, basically. It won't work your pecs, but pecs look good in the gym, but they're not a very functional muscle. And it works your heart and lungs because it's a very good cardiovascular exercise. It's the only exercise outside of biking or running where I've got my heart rate up to the 170s doing kettlebell swings. So they're awesome. If anybody's interested in kettlebell swings, go to our YouTube channel, Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy YouTube channel, and type in kettlebell. And you'll see Dr. Glenn Hoey, who has the most impeccable form with kettlebells I've ever seen. Anybody on social media, anybody in person, his form was awesome, and he did a little short video on how to do the kettlebell swing. So
I'll be going there at lunchtime. Watch out, Planet Fitness! I'm coming for you. So that'll be good.
So I think is that wrapping up our time?
Yeah,
Sarah?
This is awesome.
So
this is way easier with him here.
If you haven't checked out our podcast, look at our podcast, Health Solutions with Sean and Janet Needham. And my wife do this twice a week. We usually have guests on. Sometimes it's just us, and it does make it a lot easier when you have somebody else to talk with. And I appreciate Sarah doing that by herself because it is much more difficult. So
next week I expect more questions because I'll probably be back to being by myself. So let's get some interaction going on.
Yeah, and we love that. And even if you can't put the questions in live, put them in after the fact, and we'll answer them next week. And we appreciate you guys tuning in to Q&A with the Pharmacist. So tune in every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Right here on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and
all the things. So yes. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. And maybe.